Teachers Union Missouri, and we'd like to go on record in support of this piece of legislation. We think that comprehensive, open information is always the best way to counter ignorance.
Very good, thank you. Questions of the witness? Seeing none, are there any others wishing to testify in favor of the bill? Seeing none, are those wishing to testify in opposition to the bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Samuel Lee with Campaign Life Missouri, on record in opposition to this bill. And we had previously testified in opposition to Representative Newman's bill, and this appears to be basically a subset of that bill. I don't know if it's exactly the same language, but so for the same or similar reasons, and particularly as you and some others, Mr. Chairman, have pointed out, subsections 7 and 8 would be deleted from the bill. We think providers of abortion should not be going into our schools and providing sex education. But this current law, which would be removed, the current law also is a restriction on schools and school districts. And we think it's inappropriate for school nurses or school counselors to be referring students for abortions. That's a discussion that these students should be having with their parents. Lastly, I would point out in page 2, lines 18 through 20, which would be removed. This language was in the bill, was put in the bill originally, so that school districts that want to access federal abstinence money could do so by presenting students with information on contraceptives and pregnancy in a manner consistent with the federal abstinence education law. If that is removed from the bill, then school districts which are now accessing that probably would be unable to do so because they could not be complying with this statute and the federal law at the same time. I could talk more, but this is plenty right now.
Great, questions of the witness, Representative Monticello.
To inquire, please.
30 seconds.
William.
Yeah, that's all we have, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Mr. Lee.
Hello.
You heard testimony that 98% of Planned Parenthood's work is education related. So what would your opposition be for them being able, if they're the bulk of their work is education purposes, what is your opposition to them providing that education in our schools?
Well,
Our schools choose, it's local control.
Representative, I don't agree that 98% of their work is unrelated to abortion. Planned Parenthood is the largest provider of abortion in the country. 1/3 of all abortions provided.
We're talking about Missouri. We're in Missouri, we have 13 facilities, one of them
Mr. Chairman, I'm
provides
happy to answer
abortion.
your question or not, whichever you prefer.
So if I have a religious group coming in, should I assume that the bulk of their work they're going to be doing with our students is religious-based? They're coming in to provide sex ed.
You'd have to ask a specific organization, and you'd have to ask them what they provide. I can't speak on behalf of any other group that provides abstinence education.
But you're able to speak against Planned Parenthood providing those education
They-
services, even though I would assume that the bulk of religious
Representative, I'm happy to answer
entities.
your question.
You know what, we've got to move on. We have another bill, people have come from out of town. And I'm sorry, but we thought we'd be in until 2 today, and we've got to be on the floor at 1. So
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you for your testimony. Others wishing to testify in favor of the bill? Opposition to the bill, sorry.
Oh, you almost changed me. I thought you-
Yeah, that would be a first.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, Susan Klein, representing Missouri Right to Life, here to go on record in opposition to House Bill 1904. We disagree with deleting the sections of law that this bill does, and agree with absolutely deleting the section that abortion will not be taught by those who provide abortion. And the other point that I wanted to make too is currently already in law, we already have that information that's shared will be medically and factually accurate. This bill adds a clause to that and makes it based on peer-reviewed material, which is, we can come up with our peer-reviewed material, which we believe and know is based on medically and factually accurate information. That it becomes a political agenda at that point. So we believe if you just end with medically and factually information being presented, then you're going to get the scientific, medically factual information. So for several reasons, we oppose this bill.
Thank you. Other questions of the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Others wish to testify in opposition to the bill, very briefly.
Mr. Chairman, committee, for the record, Kerry Messler with the Missouri Family Network. We'd like to go on record opposing the legislation, but I do want to point out a couple quick items. First off, the current law was adopted back in the 1990s. As you probably all well know, the capital culture was radically different from what it is today. And during that several-year period of debate over this body of legislation, that legislature wisely chose to reject the very things that are being put into or suggested in this bill in the first few sections. And I don't know why we would go back to that debate today. However, I do want to point out pages 2, lines 46 through line 57 on page 3, we do support, and we think that would be a very good enhancement to our sex ed program in the state of Missouri. And so I do want to make it very, very clear that we actually support that provision. You'll find that in House Bill 1911. I think that'd make a great consent bill at some point. But we're very strongly opposed to bracketing out Section 7 and 8 on pages 3 and 4. We're in a war of worldviews, and I will just stop there, entertain questions.
Thank you.
Let you be in
Questions of
charge.
the witness? Seeing none,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Any others wish to testify in favor of the bill? Opposed to the bill, sorry. Thank you.
Bringing them out
Had
today.
enough coffee
Good
today.
afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Tyler McClay, Missouri Catholic Conference, is going on record in opposition here for Rush. So.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions of the witness? Seeing none. Any others wish to testify? I'll represent Monticello briefly.
Since you're representing Missouri Catholic Conference, is that correct?
Yes.
If you go into a school and you're providing sex education, should I expect that the bulk of that is going to be religious-based? If you're a religious entity, should I expect that if there's the concern that Planned Parenthood is going to be just promoting abortion, because it's a very small percentage of what they do, should I expect if your religious entity comes in, is the bulk going to be religious-based instruction?
I would expect that any group going into the school would follow the statute as far as what they were going to be teaching in the schools.
That would apply to Planned Parenthood as well.
It would.
Thank you.
Thank you. For the those wish to testify in opposition to the bill? Seeing none, or those wish to testify for informational purposes? Seeing none, this will conclude the hearing on House Bill 1904. Thank you, Representative. All right, we're now going to move on to the final bill today, House Bill 2059. We have about 15 minutes until we need to be on the floor and adjourned here. So Representative Shoemake.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Lyndall Shoemake, 5th District. I represent Marion, Shelby County, in the northern part of Monroe County. What I bring before you today is the Family Intervention Order. Rather than go over new territory, you've heard this bill is essentially the same as House Bill 1070, except with a very important change. And you probably remember, and so rather than go over all that territory again, I'd like to point out what has changed in this bill. And if you go to page 18 and you look at the definition of petitioner, on line 27, 28, and 29, it says a petitioner, either the spouse of the respondent or a child of the spouse in the respondent who is 18 years of age or older, who files for a family intervention order. So what we've done is limited the definition of petitioner for the family intervention order to made it quite narrower than it was in the original bill. That is a change.
All right, questions of this bill sponsor? See none, or Representative Monticello, if you have something, proceed.
Quiet, please. But it still does allow adult children to seek the orders against their parents.
18 years of age or older,
All right.
who is related to both.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions of the bill sponsor? See none, are those wishing to testify in favor of the bill? And I'd like to see if there are those that want to testify in favor. Could you raise your hand? So, all right, are there those, how many by a raise of hands are here to testify in opposition to the bill? All right, well, we're gonna be okay then. Let's give about no more than 3 to 4 minutes each for each witness, including questions. So are those wishing to testify in favor of the bill, please come forward now.
Good afternoon. My name is David R. Usher, President of the Center for Marriage Policy, and I think I'd like to thank a couple of people that noticed the defect in House Bill 1071, and I think that the change that we're putting in the bill this time makes it a complete success. It's probably the most perfect piece of legislation I've ever seen. And it's going to be a great boon to families, kids, state. And I'm hoping that everybody votes for it. It's going to, especially for women and kids. So I'm asking everybody to vote in favor of this bill. It's going to help everybody. And if anybody has questions, that's probably what we need to do.
Very good. Questions of the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Are there others wish to testify in favor of the bill?
Mr. Chairman, committee, again, for the record, Kerry Messerwick, Missouri Family Network. I don't have a whole lot to say, or I don't want to be too long. With the two biggest problems we face in our culture as far as the drivers of the negative things that hit us between the eyes, broken marriages, thus broken homes, and alcohol abuse. And of course, other types of drug abuse, but alcohol outweighs them all. This bill attempts to address these issues in a way that I think is very smart, somewhat novel, but I look forward to this bill going through the perfection process where we can debate and hammer out, where are the flaws, how can this be abused, how can this be misused, but at the same time, I like the idea of taking a serious look at creating a new tool that can help put the situation at bay, where a family can be preserved, where a marriage can be preserved, and lives can be preserved and actually salvaged, both adults and children. So I think it's very wise that we take a hard look at this and make this work. Thank you very much.
Questions of the witness? Thank you. See none. Any others wish to testify in favor of the bill? Representative, I do have a question on the summary. Second page of the summary, section 12, speaks of DSS being able to seek financial assistance for loans utilizing 1% of TANF to provide 6% loans to individuals who enter into substance abuse treatment and are uninsured. And the loan must not exceed the cost of the individual's chemical substance abuse treatment. I mean, are we talking about 1%, up to 1% of the entire TANF balance?
I think it comes to a couple of $1 million, something like that. And it says may also.
Okay.
That is within the definition of the federal use of the money.
Right.
And it doesn't, it would be if this was done, and the bill doesn't make it doesn't mandate that to be done. But if it were done, it would be from TANF funds already, and it is that are already there, that are already that come from the federal government, and that they just be used in that way, and they do fit the federal definition of the use of TANF funds.
Well, repayment at 6%, what would be the enforcement mechanism for that?
I suppose any of our other laws that have to do with repaying bills,
Yeah, it reads with some concern that, the state not be put in a position of becoming a bill collector. I mean, obviously we do that through revenue already with taxes, but, this section seems, complicated, so.
Yeah, that could be certainly looked at, and it's not mandated in the bill.
Right.
At all. There's always a challenge in seeking funds for intervention and drug treatment and so forth. And it does fit in with the definition of the use of TANF funds. And it would pass the federal muster, I know, I'm certain of that, but it doesn't mandate.
Okay, very good. Any other questions of the bill sponsor? Representative, do you have any closing comments?
Yes, I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the committee for giving this bill another hearing. And I would say that there are a lot of other people that are interested in this legislation. Some were disappointed in the change because they realize that there are some other persons in the household that could be affected by this. For instance, the young child that feels trapped because of the chemical abuse of their children. But we know that comes with other risks too as well. And so we went ahead and narrowed the definition, and that's the change. So I thank you very much.
Very good. Just to double check, are there any others wishing to testify for informational purposes? All right, seeing none, this concludes the hearing on this bill. Thank you very much, Representative. And my apologies to the committee that we were cut so short. I thought we'd have till 2 today, and we only had till 1. So now you have a few minutes to do your business and get to the floor. So this concludes this hearing. Thank you.
Okay, nice to meet you. No, I'm just here. Oh, are you? Oh, okay. No.
I mean,
St. Louis.
the lady that works for Mark Twain Mental Health testified the first time. She would have come. I've got
I was just like, that was okay. Was silencing somebody else for the second time. Really? You well, it's funny that it's funny that the last bill that they might intervention, which don't even ask why it's even it's like something about one. Did you figure it out? So what are you doing today? I'm going to go to lunch now. I'm going to go to lunch. And then I'm going to get on stuff like that.
Yeah, we're gonna walk up there. Check it out. Last time I watched that.
Well, there's this like altercation about the door because oh, it was so stupid. It was so stupid. I was like, why are you yelling at me about storage? If you have a story about it.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about
What do you guys are interested in? Is this really what you're going to get out of class?
No, we're great. Yeah, so we did that in class, one of ours.
Yeah. It's not
We're gonna
I
come
mean,
in.
why? No, I can't remember when I saw it. Okay.
Secondary. I don't know.
Yeah.
Some of us yeah. For it. I always know that at 8:30 she has excited to bring grade for everyone.
Well, probably anyone lunch too, so then we'll go to the art gallery. So we don't, yeah, wait, so we don't have to worry about.
You were fine.
I'm in our session.
I was wearing all black.
Okay, great, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
You don't know what?
She lives in yeah, where is she? Where is she?
No, I think he's using.
I just,
Okay, I got it.
oh my wow, I just can't wait to talk.
You just talking to you.
Not that I know of.
I know there are union people in St. Charles County.
Well, we have some.
Yeah, I just didn't know what parts of it. I know like Sands Air has some.
Yeah, St. Charles City is kind of the Wentz Bill.